Hello, I'm Chris Callahan, also known as Mr. C, and today we're going to talk about middle game strategies. Oh boy, oh boy, this is a hard one. I guess I shouldn't be building it up so much, but it's true. Middle games are probably the most complicated thing in chess. There's just so much going on, so many possibilities. If it makes you feel any better, it's hard for grandmasters too. In a lot of middle game positions, there's no one correct move. One player will like a certain move and a different player will like some other move, and it's not at all clear who is right. So where do we start? Well, I think we should start with taking things and checkmate, or the fancy way that most chess players would say that, tactics. To make it as simple as possible, if you have a checkmate, that's the move. That's it. There's nothing to think about, nothing to discuss. Checkmate wins the game. You can't do better than that. That's it. But what about something that's not quite as good as checkmate? Let's say winning the queen. Well, if you have a move that wins the queen, it isn't always the best move. I guess I could find positions where taking the queen is bad, but it doesn't happen much. Most of the time, if you take a queen for free, that will be the best move. So that's why our first priority is tactics. Or to say the same thing in simpler terms, taking things and checkmate. Okay, so tactics are the first step, but what's number two? What do we do when there is no checkmate and nothing to take? Well, then we have to use what's called positional chess. Positional chess is a lot like taking pieces without taking pieces. What I mean is, I may not be able to take one of your pieces off the board, but maybe I can make it so miserable, I can trap it somewhere so bad that it will wish I had taken it. And the same trick works for my own pieces too. I may not be able to put any more new pieces on the board on my side, but I can make the ones I have happier. Let's look at some examples. These aren't really intended as exercises, they're more examples, but if you want to pause the video and think about what you would do, be my guest. Anyway, it's White's turn, and if you are thinking in terms of positional chess, you are missing the boat. Don't think about making your pieces better, don't think about where they might want to be. It is so much simpler. There is a checkmate. And the checkmate is a two-mover. Knight to e7, check, attacking the king. There's two moves. You can go to h8 or h7, but after either one, queen to h5 is checkmate. So we don't think about improving the positions of the pieces. We don't think about making them happier. We just have checkmate, so that's what we play. Very simple. Here's another one, and you'll forgive me for choosing a position that might not really be a middle game, if I'm honest. There's not enough pieces for it to be the middle game, but I'm just choosing simple positions where I want to make a simple point. Anyway, it's White's to play. What would you do? Well, right off the bat, we can see there are no captures, there's no checks, so there's certainly no checkmate. So this is one of those wishy-washy positions where we try to improve one of our pieces. So what would you do? For me, there's a move that is just screaming to be played. The first thing I notice looking at this position is how unhappy the two rooks are. Look at these rooks trapped behind the pawns. My rook only has 2 squares to go to. That's not very good. This black rook has 3. That's not very good. And I can fix it with a very simple move. Pawn to h4. Now, this is a very common way of getting rooks into the game, is getting pawns out of the way in front of them. And whatever happens in front of this rook, he's going to be much happier in the end. If black takes, then we will take back, and we've got an amazing rook that is doing lots of amazing things. And if black doesn't takes, then we simply take, and we still have a great rook. So we haven't added any pieces to the board, or taken any away from black, really, but one of our pieces is way more effective now. It's almost like getting a new piece. Well, here's another one. White to play. What would you do? So we don't have any captures, so that's out. There is a check, and I think that check is clearly the best move. I would definitely play bishop to b5 in this position. Now, I don't want you leaving with the idea that checks are always good moves. Checks are not always good moves. Checkmates are always good moves, not checks. The reason that this check is so great is because it makes one of black's pieces very unhappy. You see, there's only 2 ways to save the king here, and neither one of them is very appealing to black. He could block with his queen, then he loses his queen, so that's not a real possibility. The only other move is king to e7, And positionally, this is not good for black. First of all, a king that has moved cannot castle, so this black king will never be able to castle. Maybe he can sneak to the side somewhere and get some safety, but he won't be castling. He's also blocking in this bishop. That was a square that maybe the knight was coming to. Maybe the queen could have used this diagonal if the king wasn't away. The black pieces are just all stepping on each other's toes, and the king can't castle. It's a big mess, and it only took us one move to make it happen, so that's definitely the best move for me. Okay, one more. I have to have a really hard example, or I'm not doing my job as a teacher. White to play. What would you do? Well, white has what looks like to me a very crushing move. And the reason it's crushing might not be immediately obvious. The move that I want to play is bishop to g5. Now, what will happen after bishop g5? The queen is in danger. Okay, the queen can't take because there's a pawn here protecting it. How will black save their queen? Well, there's a few ways. You can't move your queen to c7 because there's a knight here. So we will have to block. The obvious way is to block with the bishop. Now, I am going to take that bishop, and black will take back. And then you're going to see the real point of my plan. I am going to play knight to d6 check. So not only does the black king have to move, which means no castling, this knight is absolutely gorgeous. Look at that knight right in black's face, right in the middle of his camp, completely safe because of this pawn. The bishop, because it's a light square bishop, can never actually come take this knight, and it's going to be hard to find a way to trade it off for this knight as well. This is just going to be an amazing piece. And it's only possible because I traded off that bishop that otherwise would have taken it. If we go back a couple moves and put everything back, if I play knight d6 right away, black can take, and I don't get my beautiful knight. Right? There is one other option that we should look at, and it's interesting to look at. You could also block with the knight. Well, this is where the tactics and the positional chess work together, because knight e7 is not bad for positional reasons. All of black pieces are well enough. It's bad because knight d6 is now checkmate. Attacking the king, covering the only other square he could go to. Black saved himself positionally, but got checkmated, so it didn't quite work out. So I could talk for hours and hours about different middle game positions and different ways of making your pieces happy, but I think this is enough for now. It kind of gives you the idea of what you should be looking for. When your pieces are very well placed, you're happy, and when they get trapped somewhere awful, they're not very happy. And all along, don't forget that you can take stuff and checkmate, and that comes first. Thanks for watching. Bye.